Hello and welcome to the Berley Times. I want to thank Paula Gordon and Ian Cobb for taking the time to have conversations with the candidates and to be able to share those conversations with you. Anecdotally, I've talked to some of the candidates and they're having some degree of difficulty engaging folks in this campaign. There seems to be some apathy and simple disinterest. I encourage you to please engage the candidates, find out who they are, what they stand for, because this is an extremely important election for Kimberley, for the region, and for the province. Not that all elections aren't important, but this one in particular because we no longer have an incumbent that is running for re-election. So the MLA that we get is going to be extremely important for us to be able to achieve our objectives over the next 4 years. So engage the candidates, find out what they stand for, please listen to these conversations, and most importantly, on May the 9th, get out and vote.
Samson Boyer, before we start on the nitty-gritty, I'm always intrigued by anyone who at any age and any point in one's life will commit to being a candidate in the political process, in the voting part of the political process. What did call you to be running for the member of the Legislative Assembly MLA in the riding in which you live out here in the far eastern part of British Columbia?
Yeah, well, I think there needs to be a change, in all honesty. I've lived here my entire life, and I love it out here, but I am going to have to go away to get my education, go to university, college, and I don't see the opportunity for me to come back and get a job here. I want to make my life out here.
Well, there is the College of the Rockies that does have campuses in the valley and in the area.
That's true.
But in general, I suspect that probably is the case.
And
many people do go away.
They do. And from what I've seen, I've spoken to a few high schools already, many of the kids aren't staying here. And many feel like they can't find jobs here in the valley. They want to live here, but they don't find that they have the opportunity to.
So that was the motivation to declare your candidacy.
Exactly.
The city of Kimberley, in which we are sitting, in some ways represents the other cities in the riding. Help me to understand what some of the key issues and opportunities are that you see for Kimberley in particular and these cities in general.
Yeah. Well, I would say definitely Kimberley and Revelstoke as well are moving in the right direction, and I think the rest of the valley should follow suit.
And be specific about that.
Of course. Kimberley especially is moving towards greener technologies, greener industries, and working towards technology and innovation, such as creating maker spaces to help small businesses and even startups, getting some incubators out here. And I think sustainable agriculture, I believe, I forget the name of it out here in Kimberley, but don't they have community gardens?
Oh, yes.
Correct, yes. It's definitely something we need to see grow and continue throughout the valley.
Now, when you say agriculture, are you talking about sort of a large greenhouse operations, or?
I'm talking about both small farms, because I believe that everything that can be grown locally, I know we're not going to grow bananas or anything like that of the sort, but anything that can be grown locally and sold should be. We shouldn't have to be importing our lettuce from the States or importing cucumbers from California. We can grow it all here locally. And so whether that be from greenhouses, community farms, or even just small local farms, I think all should be accepted.
Are these the key issues and opportunities that you see? Is it around that
technology and innovation, definitely, I would say. I think we all should play and we should all play a part. It's impossible to avoid, but I think we also need to, I'm saying also so much, sorry. We need to also protect and ensure that logging industry is maintained. We can't let that fall at the wayside. And we have such opportunity to create expensive products here from our raw lumber. and yet we decide to ship it off to America, China, and Japan, and then buy back the products they make. It's simply...
What can you do as an MLA to help make that happen?
Well, we can subsidize industries. We can help build up. And really, I think it's a matter of funding more than anything else. And sadly, when it comes to almost anything an MLA speaks about, it's about listening to the community and money.
The Columbia River Revelstoke riding has common issues across the riding, which has lots of rural areas as well as the towns themselves. How would you articulate what those common issues are with everybody from Micah and Revelstoke down here to Kimberley and in between?
Well, I would say the biggest one is affordable housing.
Really?
Yes. We hear a lot of talk about the issues in the lower mainland and how it's $1 million house people simply can't afford. But here we also have very similar issues. In Invermere and Windermere, it's $400,000 for the average house. Revelstoke is having the same issue. Houses are becoming more and more expensive, and they're not being bought up and used for local residents, for young families. One, because they're too expensive, and second is because they're being bought up by tourism. And that's something I found that Revelstokians, that's the correct term, they might feel insulted by it, but people from Revelstoke feel like they're turning into a tourism industry. And already in Fairmont and in Invermere, less so in Kimberley especially, but people are finding that most money is coming from tourism. And I think from no matter what small community, the best way to run an economy is to have a diverse economy. And I think that's an issue that we can all work towards.
What if one is living in the rural area? Does that apply the same?
Yes, especially. When you're not located directly in a town, it's harder to get around. Your job you have to drive to, most likely. And I would say if we can work towards having online contractors, people who work from home on the internet, it's much more viable in rural areas. And that's why technology innovation is the step we need to take.
The role of the MLA, this is sort of a social studies question, I guess, but how do you see what specifically is the role of the MLA?
It's to listen to their constituents. I think that's the best way to describe it. That's the only way it should be described, in my opinion. If an MLA is not listening and doing what his or her constituents want, then he or she is simply not doing their job.
Now, that a lot of times if people will ask an MLA to sort out a problem, but the problem may go against the party lines. How would you deal with that?
Well, once you're elected MLA, I think the constituents come first. It's not about the party, it's about the people. People choose their party because they agree with it most. I would say if I'm elected MLA and a liberal voter comes up and wants some help or has an issue, I want to listen and I will try my best to fix the solution.
You're running on a party platform.
Yes.
You are affiliated with a party. How does that play into the role of the MLA?
I would say it gives good direction to where the MLA both believes and where they plan on going.
It would be okay for you to tell me what that is.
Yes. Anything specific?
Well, I'm interested to know why you picked your particular party as that on which to run.
Yes, definitely. Well, I'm a beekeeper myself. I've done it since I was 13 years old. And over the years, I've found that bees, not only in our region, but across the world, have been in decline. And neither of the other parties, the NDP nor the Liberals, over the last 50 years have made it a priority to protect our environment. I see that and that's why I chose the Green Party above all. As well as, unlike in previous years, the Green Party has been moving towards a balance between ecology and economy. We're no longer just long-haired tree huggers. But I would say I agree most with what their platform has to say, and that's why I chose the Greens. Yeah.
Again, sort of the social studies approach. The MLA, whoever wins as the MLA, say that you as a Green Party representative, that you win, but the party doesn't take the government, and you are in opposition. How does that affect how you represent the people who elected you?
I would say it affects me only in the ability to get decisions passed to help our communities. I believe strongly that the Greens are going to make a strong push this year, that we're going to get a lot more seats than we did in, last year. But I'll be honest, I don't believe that we won't win a majority government. That's clear. I think as MLA, I will work with all parties to reach what is best for our region, for Columbia River Revelstoke. And that's by far my first priority.
Have you been finding, are people taking you seriously because of your age?
Some more than others.
Yeah.
I would say I take myself seriously, and that's the important part. If people don't take me seriously, then that's up to them to decide. I'll try to change their minds, but some people never change their minds.
Well, you're starting no question, unequivocally, you're starting into this process at a young age, at a high level. Have people asked you why run for MLA when you could be running for a city council or a school board or something that you could get your feet wet? Why jump in as an MLA candidate?
It's true. Well, I believe that the best way to get experience is to go right into it. As I've found throughout my life, you can learn a lot from reading a book or starting from scratch. But the best way to gain any experience, whether that be running for government, starting a business, even skiing or snowboarding, it's to jump right in. And I think if I don't win this election, which I'm well aware of the challenges, my goal is to hopefully build a green base and get my name out there. Start building support.
Are you speaking principally to young people, or are people listening across the demographic?
I think people are listening across the demographic. I believe that something that many of the current MLAs are forgoing is the next generation. We will be, when our parents or grandparents are in retirement homes, it'll be up to us to take up their jobs, to ensure that they get proper care. We'll be the nurses, the doctors. We are the next generation. So I think it's vital that young people get engaged. But I've also spoken with elderly, spoken with middle class, mid-aged people, and we all have similar concerns. It's just a matter of how do we address them.
And what rises to your mind as one of those similar concerns?
Definitely the environment. But as well as many people have concerns in Revelstoke with Highway 1.
What about it?
It's poor condition, and the fact that it's only a 2-lane road and it's been taking so long to get it up to 4 lanes. It's considered one of the most dangerous roads in Canada.
That's the Trans-Canada, isn't it?
That's the Trans-Canada, yeah. And yet it's only a 2-way road.
At that point.
That point, yes.
It is a 4-lane in much of it.
Most of it is a 4-lane road. It's sad that...
So how does that play, the transportation part, how does that play into your environmental concerns?
I think human lives need to come first and foremost when we think of anything really. It doesn't have too much of an impact, and the lives saved is well worth it. It's a minor compared to the rest. We spend the lowest amount on our wildlife and protection in BC. BC itself spends less money on its wildlife than Alberta even. And we have more species, we have more diversity.
Or crown land.
More crown land. More land in general. And yet we spend the least. But I would say many people are also concerned about the fact that we don't have a livable wage. People can get a job, try to support their families, and yet they can't make ends meet. So that's something the Green Party and myself want to remedy.
I have, excuse me, I have been getting something of an education in how the parliamentary system within this particular province works. And I've been interested that there really is kind of three levels when you're looking at the legislative level, the rural districts, I think as RDEC, because it happens to be where we are here in the East Kootenays, and the municipalities. How do you see, if and when you are elected, the MLA relating to these three levels of government?
I think the MLA needs to work with all three. If one is excluded or simply not its voice isn't the people's voice, or the officials they elected, such as mayors or MLAs, aren't brought to the table, then people's voice simply isn't being heard. As MLA, I'd like to work within all realms of government here in BC. Yeah.
One of the things that we've not talked about much in these conversations is the role of the Aboriginal, everybody calls the First Nations something different, whether it's, I'm from America, we call it Native Americans, First Nations, Aboriginal, Indigenous, the first peoples here. How does that play into your view as a prospective MLA? How do they as a community and their contributions?
I think we definitely need to have more inclusion, especially with how the people within Native American communities, First Nations, are brought to the table. There was a recent corruption scandal here in our local, just north in Invermere, where the First Nations had elected officials taking large chunks of the money given to them and spent it somewhat poorly, some would say. But I think if I'm to be elected MLA, if I was to be elected MLA, I would work with First Nations leaders, sit down with the chiefs, and discuss what, depending on the issue, whether it be environmental, economic, sit down and see what their concerns are.
They'd be happy to hear that.
Yes.
I think any of us would be happy to hear that. I think there's a general sense. I've heard more about apathy in the last year than I had expected, and it would seem to me that one of the things you do to address apathy is to get people engaged on a one-to-one basis. But when you have, I don't know how many people in this riding, and they're all over the place, how do you facilitate that? How do you get people engaged?
It is difficult. We have one of the largest ridings in BC. Personally, I think it's a bit too large. We could perhaps split it up, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. I think the best thing we can do, and all the candidates, myself included, are trying to reach out to people. We're going door to door in every town, every community, and we're trying to get out and listen to the people's voice. I would say the best thing, and it needs to happen on both parts. It can't be just the MLA going out to reach the people. The people need to reach out to the MLA. And I've had a good number of people reach out to me already. I've set up meetings, spoken with them, and there is a concern for the government and the way it's headed and the way it's been.
You're an anomaly for your age bracket because of your interest in politics. One of the lingering problems in our society is voter counts seem to continue to decline, and a lot of that tends to come from the under 30 crowd.
Oh yeah.
What's your sense from going around the riding and talking to people your age or perhaps a little bit older than you? Are you finding a little bit more engagement, or more work need to be done?
Yeah, definitely more work needs to be done, and I think we need to bring it back to education. If we don't start in the school system, if we don't get kids engaged in politics in their early years, they're not going to have an interest in it later on. I think we need to reform our education system and have more involvement. Get kids out working or learning more about their local politicians, federal politicians, and just be more engaged. I've had good support. I've been told by a few young people that they're voting green. But overall, young people just feel like they're not being heard. But the best way to be heard is to bring your voice out. And that's what I'm trying to do.
The MLA position there's real power over the educational establishment from the federal as the provincial as well as the municipal level, and each is exercised differently. Running for MLA, what's the role of the MLA in promoting all kinds of elements within the education experience?
Well, it's essential that the MLA ensures that we have a proper and well-funded education system. The Green parties, and myself included, will be working for free daycare as well as increased funding in our high schools. Now, this is not a party position, but this is my position. I believe that we need to work towards free college, not university, free college, community college, because many young people are going to be going into debt to get their education. And many jobs out here in the region are not being fulfilled. We have a lack of nurses, firemen, paramedics. So what we need to do is ensure that we can get people with the education into these positions.
Is there any available models that you can think of, other countries or jurisdictions that are doing that? I understand, I think
Denmark is making its way towards there. I think they already have free college. I know that Sweden and I believe Norway also have very similar policies. And I think we should look definitely to those regions as a method. But
we once met the ambassador from Finland, and I asked him what his priorities were for the nation, and he said education, education, and education. So that could be applied really in lots of different ways. It doesn't just go into class when you talk about education. How do you reach beyond just being the classroom orientation of education?
I completely agree. It's important that we reach out, but life is a learning experience, in my opinion. The best way, I would say, to get education out of the classroom is to get people engaged, have community events, get them out volunteering. The BC Green Party wants to implement tutorship instead of spending 2 years in college or university. 4 years in college and university. We split that up, take 2 years in a classroom. The other 2, they go out, mentor, apprentice in whatever job or area they wish to pursue. And we're also looking to offering and investing in skills, redefining people's skills and teaching them new ones. I like, personally, makerspaces. I'm going to sell this point for as long as I can because they're growing in number and they're incredibly useful. They're offering skills to both young children as well as adults on programming, building, technology, and innovation. And they're getting people out using their hands and working with the communities.
Since we're talking education, you have a relatively unique experience that you are homeschooled. How does the homeschooling community fit into your view of being an MLA?
My view is that it's been a very good experience for me. I'll admit it's not for everybody, certainly. The biggest complaint I have with homeschooling would be it limits my interaction with my peers. Other than that, I think it's by far more, it's a way to look to the future, really. I've had opportunities to get involved and invested in things that I want to do, such as beekeeping, my interest in politics, of course. There has been no plan that I've found from the NDP, the Liberals, or even the Greens addressing homeschooling. It's been somewhat, I wouldn't say underfunded, it's just not something people really think about when they consider education.
So when you're knocking on my door and I open the door and see this nice young man, what is your 10-second elevator speech? What do you say? Hello?
How are you today?
Okay, I'm fine. How can I help you, I say. And you say?
My name is Samson Boyer. I'm running for MLA, and I was wondering if you have any issues or concerns. I'm just out here talking to people, so if you have any questions, I'm out here. So,
Well, and then the conversation begins. We thank you for
Exactly.
being here, Samuel Boyer. Samson
Thank you.
Boyer.
Samson, there you go. Well, no, thank you for having me.
Indeed.
Cheers.